it was not what it should have been, not what it could have been, and I think you can really look at Hulk Hogan for that. I mean, I think Hulk Hogan was pulling the strings on Eric Bischoff like a puppet, and he was such a piece of shit, really.
When Montreal happened, and obviously the stuff with Owen and all that kind of stuff, I think it was like hell would freeze over before you would go back to WWE. But in 2006, you did do the Hall of Fame. So can you talk a little bit about what led up to you sort of letting go of some of the anger that you had towards the company and doing the Hall of Fame in 2006?
Well, let's see, where would I start? I mean, I was very angry for a really long time. I mean, that's for sure. I think anyone that knows me knows that. And, I think for me, my career was everything for me. Everything I did in my career, I mean, my family, wrestling is not just something that I started doing in my teens. I mean, I think all my life, I was always tied in with wrestling. Everything was wrestling. When my first thoughts of being when I was a little kid, everything was about wrestling. I wish I'd had action figures when I was a kid. But I sure beat the heck out of a lot of Barbie dolls and stuff like that. But everything was wrestling, and I think when the whole screw job happened, part of me could never believe that they would do that to me after as hard as I worked for them. And some of the guys come up, like I remember Vader came up to me about 20 minutes before my match. He goes, they're gonna screw you in the match. I know it. And I was like, I know, but what can you do? All you can do is go out there and try to stop it and not let it happen, and maybe believe that they have more integrity than that. But so after it did happen, I remember going home on the airplane even after the whole thing happened, and I remember the documentary guy that filmed it. I remember going, he was so happy. He goes, we got it, we got everything, And I'm like, you didn't get any of it. Like, how could you ever piece that together? How he did piece it together is a miracle, but I mean, he did piece it together. But I was so angry, I never thought anyone would ever know my side of the story. I always thought, I knew in my heart that I would never go back and work for him for sure. And so, I mean, I left and went home, probably a pretty angry guy. It's hard to be too angry when you're went from WWF and suddenly was in WCW, where I was making more money than I ever knew what to do with in my life. Well, I would have figured out ways to spend it, but I got a huge pay and like a jump in my pay, so I was making a lot of money, and I was I was trying to, I always get annoyed when people tell me that, or I hear that, like guys like Eric Bischoff say that I came to WCW with a broken spirit, or I didn't have any kind of heart to, I didn't desire to go for it anymore. And I was like, that's so not true. It makes me so mad. If I ever wanted to shine or, become really show how valuable I was to a company, it was the WCW. I came there trying to make nothing but money for them and turn the tide for them and be this wrestling champion that they maybe always were looking for. I was going to give them 100%. And I did give them 100% every night that I worked, but they really were a bunch of stupid idiots. And I can't even describe how stupid they were. They were like idiots. But so anyway, they did a lot to rain on my career too. Like it was not what it should have been, not what it could have been, and I think you can really look at Hulk Hogan for that. I mean, I think Hulk Hogan was pulling the strings on Eric Bischoff like a puppet, and he was such a piece of shit, really. I was always such a Hulk Hogan guy. I was all the years I was in WWE, I would have done anything for Hulk. I was a big supporter of his, and anything I could have done to help him, including work hard on his cards and stuff. I was very much a company guy. He was always stabbing. What they should have done in WCW is put me with Hulk Hogan right like in the first night I came and done a big pay-per-view. And I don't know. I'm not saying I should have beat him or anything, but we should have started a storyline and would have maybe saved that company. But they were too stupid. And then like when Bill Goldberg kicked me in the head and ended my career, it was such a lousy way to go because I didn't know my career was over. And when I did go home, and it took me a year to find out that my career was over. And right around the time I found out that I couldn't, my doctors told me that I could never wrestle again. Then the WCW fired me, and like from the day I got hurt, my $1 million salary got cut. Every week it got cut in half, and got cut in half, and got cut in half, and kept getting cut in half till there was nothing left. And then they just fired me, which was such a lousy deal. I had, when I was in WWE, I had a insurance policy through Vince that, even if I slipped in the shower, I was totally covered. My contract was paid in full. But when I signed with WCW, they gave me an insurance policy with Lloyd's of London. And if you know anything about Lloyd's of London, they don't like to pay anybody. They like those premiums. They like you to keep paying those. But when it comes time to settle up and pay when they're supposed to, they are total bullshit. And they would not pay me, and I had to sue them, and I had to go through court. And I think when looking back on those times, I was concussed so badly that I really couldn't really digest that my career was over and sort of get my head around it. Part of me was like, finally, I'm free. I don't have to go anywhere this weekend, and I can be home, and you like being home, but when you have a concussion like the one I had, I remember I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't listen to music. I couldn't, I had even food. I can remember like my whole diet, like everything that I would eat. I had no, like you could have the best steak in the world and it tasted like liver and nothing really mattered. I remember it's like, I remember my doctor described it to me as kind of like all the places that make you happy in your brain, that's the part that got whacked. That's the part that got kicked really hard. And, I didn't really understand it or take it all in so much at the time, but, I got hurt by Goldberg, and he called me 8 months after it happened and told me that he was sorry, which, really was irrelevant at that point. He never once called me after it happened, or I don't think he ever understood, or I don't know that he even does now or even cares that he honestly cost me $16 million in like 2 seconds and ended my career. And when I hear about Bill Goldberg going to Saudi Arabia making $3 million for a 10-minute match in Saudi Arabia, I go, you think he would have called me up and said, here, I'm going to send you something for it. But he's never thought of me once since he got hurt, since I got hurt. And it bothers me a little bit to see all these guys go there and make enormous sums of money for a couple minutes work. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Daniel Bryan, who didn't go. I don't know that I would have gone. I don't know that I wouldn't have. It's it was a lot of money, $3 million to a pro wrestler, especially Goldberg, who went there and wrestled for 10 minutes. And, it's a big paycheck. So, if someone offered me the same thing, I don't know if I would have turned it down or I would have accepted it. But anyway, I didn't really have a chance to digest a lot of what happened to me. And I never really had I was always like very angry inside. And then, of course, I know everyone knows too much about my stroke, but I had my stroke about a year or two after I got hurt, a little over a year and a half after I got injured with a concussion. I suffered a stroke riding my bicycle in Calgary on a bike path. And I think, when I suffered the stroke, it was definitely tied in with my concussion injury. But that for sure was the end of my career. Like it's like any thought of ever going back or burying the hatchet with Vince or my concussion sort of slowly getting better, that enough that I could have some kind of a match or do something, that was impossible at that point. And that's, I think when I remember being in my hospital bed and being in a wheelchair those first 5 or 6 days, it was like really just really powerfully struck me how I'll never walk out to the wrestling crowd with the hands out and stuff like that. So I was very I took all that like really bad. I didn't like that, and I realized that when I had my stroke, I think that there was a part of me that realized that it doesn't do you any good. Like if I was going to give advice to everybody out there, it's like when you suffer something really huge happens in your life in a negative way, and you hate somebody and you're so angry about it, it doesn't do you any good to carry it around all the time. I carried it around. I always liken it to carrying a big bag of rocks around. It was like every day I had to pick up these bag of rocks about how I'm mad at Vince McMahon and the screw job. And, you lug it around every day. And then, of course, I had the stroke. And so it's like I realized after I had my stroke, after about a year, maybe the first year or maybe this going into like a year after, it's like how lucky I was that I got the recovery that I did have. And I learned the hard way that it doesn't do any good to carry around a lot of grief and heartache in your. So the idea that of course I would never walk out to the ring. I remember thinking I'll never do that again. That'll never happen. And when I suffered my stroke, I don't know how Vince got my number exactly, but I had a phone put in my room. I remember the day they were plugging it in. They just plugged it into the wall in my hospital room. And I remember thinking, like, nobody knows my number. No one's got it yet. And as soon as I plug the phone in, my phone rings, and I'm going, hello? And it's Vince McMahon. And it's like, I remember thinking, I was so mad. And it was a sort of, I got to have a drink.
Press on the wagon, everybody.
I didn't know what to say to him. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to, really, the anger was still there. And the anger would still be there for quite a long time. But at the same time, once upon a time, I had a pretty good relationship with Vince. And in a lot of ways, Vince was very much like a father figure to me. We had a lot of trust and a lot of, we were, I think, close friends for a long time. And I appreciate all the things Vince did do, including give me that first chance to be the champion for him. So there was a part of me that wanted to kind of make friends or reach out, or at least accept him reaching out. And there was another part of me that was just wanted to slam the phone down and hang up on him. And so I remember talking to him, and he said, he said they were going to do another DVD on me if I wanted to. And I talked to him about my archive and my film, like my whole career. Usually whenever I finished a match in WWE, especially pay-per-view, I'd always come back through the curtain and Vince would be clapping and he'd slap me on the back and stuff like that. And I would always tell him, there's one for my archive. When they do the best of Bret Hart DVD someday, that'll be on it, that match. And then I would come in and say, that one will be on it. Then there was got to be 20 matches that are going to be on it. And then he'd say, it's going to be 3 volumes and all that. And it was like, I had high hopes with Vince at one time. And when he called me and told me that they'd like to do all that stuff still, and then he told me that they would like to put me in the Hall of Fame, and asked me if I would do it. And I said I would do it, and I knew I would. I asked myself that question before he ever asked me. I remember asking myself, if they asked me to do the Hall of Fame, would I go? And I remember thought, yeah, I'd go. I deserve to go.